Welcome to Soccer Morning on NASN. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Jason Davis here with you on Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, all of those very live places where you can catch us live every weekday live. Speaking of live, today is Transfer Deadline Day. Can you tell from my voice that I am excited for Transfer Deadline Day? I'm going a million miles a minute. And the caffeine intake has been normal. There's been no significant increase in my caffeine intake today. I am just excited for Transfer Deadline Day. Actually, while I am excited for Transfer Deadline Day, and we'll add some context to that, and there's transfers to talk about, guys. While I am excited for Transfer Deadline Day, I'm also excited for this show. And we will talk Transfer Deadline Day a little bit. We've got Cristian Nyari coming up a little bit later to talk some German movement, if there is any. Looks like Julian Draxler's move to Arsenal has fallen through. So we'll talk about what is happening, what's not happening. But today's show is jam-packed from on many different levels. First up, in the next segment, very, very shortly, Kristan Heneage from ESPNFC, the New York Times, 442, based up there in the northeast of England. He'll talk to us probably mostly about Sunderland, maybe about Jozy Altidore. If you're a U.S. national team fan interested in the future of Jozy Altidore at Sunderland, you're going to want to listen to that. Then after Kristan, we're going to talk to Curt Onalfo, LA Galaxy assistant coach and newly named coach of LA Galaxy 2, the U.S. Pro entry. LA Galaxy are taking that step. Everybody else said, yeah, we'll partner up or we won't. We're not going to partner up. And LA Galaxy are going all out. They're putting a full USL Pro team into that league in 2014. Very interesting move from a development standpoint for LA Galaxy. And we'll talk to Curt Onalfo about that. Perhaps we'll ask him about the Chivas job, which he reportedly turned down. We've got Brian McBride. Brian McBride's on this show. Brian McBride, U.S. International, famous, great U.S. International, current Fox Soccer. Well, it's not Fox Soccer anymore, is it? Fox analyst. He is a Fox Soccer analyst, but he's not a Fox Soccer champ. Whatever. Brian McBride, come on. Can't get excited for that. What's wrong with you? And then as I mentioned before, Cristian Nyari, our friend from Bundesliga Fanatic, will join us and we'll talk German football. Jam-packed and transfer news. Do you want to get into the transfer stuff right now? Trevor, do I have the high sign to go transfer news right now? Let's make this all dramatic. Let's go. Ready? What's on the agenda here? Let me look at my actually there's nothing on that paper. I'm lying. I don't have a Jim White impression ready. I haven't tried that. I'm not going to try that. But what do we got? Dimitar Berbatov off to Monaco. I haven't seen any price on that, so I don't know exactly what's going on there. But Dimitar Berbatov in Monaco, how exciting. Amazing. The Continental, and I'm sorry I'm stealing from Brooks Peck there. The Continental is headed to Monaco. Is there a better place for Dimitar Berbatov than Monaco? I don't think so. Lewis Holtby on loan from Spurs to Fulham. I guess that news actually came down yesterday because Pochettino tweeted it or something. What happened with that? It's crazy. It's Transfer Deadline Day. Emmanuel Frimpong. Nobody cares about him, but he's off to Barnsley. Stay dench, guys. Let's see. We got Mitroglou to Fulham. I'm sure I'm butchering his name, but the Greek international to Fulham. So there's an interesting move. Wilfried Zaha. Is he going to get to play now? He's going to Cardiff. And maybe Ole Gunnar can figure out a way to use Wilfried Zaha. Didn't get a run at Manchester United. It's time to develop the kid. Let's go. All right. Give me some more transfer news. I'm short. I need some more I know we're eight hours from the window. That's the problem, right? Where's the helicopters? Where's I need helicopters. I need swoops. I need audacious moves. I need hijacked moves. I need this stuff. I need it. Let me go ahead. All right, that's just a little too much for me right now. It is a Friday. I'm excited. I apologize. But here's the thing about Transfer Deadline Day, and if you have listened to this show, you know that when it comes to rumors, I am a skeptic. I think that the base, your basic setting has to be skeptic when it comes to transfer rumors because so many of them are nonsense, created out of thin air, bargaining tools created by agents. They're never going to happen anyway. Why get excited? Sometimes you get those legitimate rumors, and those are interesting. But I think Deadline Day is a blast because not only, even though I'm skeptical when it comes to rumors, there's so much stuff happening today, and there's so much ridiculous nonsense. This is over the top ridiculous nonsense on transfer deadline day. And this is the January window when the prices are too large and maybe there's not as much activity as in the summer, but it's still just such an insanely chaotic day. We get to talk about fax machines. When else do we get to talk about fax machines? And you're like, okay, fax machines are boring. Who cares about? But come on, they still use fax machines to complete transfers. How insane is that? Now, the other bit of context we have to apply to this today is that a transfer deadline day in England, the transfer deadline in England is in 8 hours. The transfer deadline in Germany and France and Italy and Spain isn't until Sunday. So while we will all be focused on what's happening in England and Premier League movement, and yes, Berbatov out at Fulham, and maybe some movement within the Premier League, this player to that place, this player to wherever, and again, the helicopter stuff. While we're all going to be focused on that, this is only just one place where the deadline is ending today, where the deadline's coming up today, and the transfer window is closing. And will we get any panic buys? I love panic buys. Is there anything better than a panic buy? Probably not. Will someone Will someone panic buy Jozy Altidore? We're going to talk to Cristian Nyari from ESPNFC and New York Times at 442 and many other outlets in just a second. Get some insight on what's going on at Fulham. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network at ASN.TV. Stay there.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, joined now on the telephone via transatlantic line by Cristian Nyari from ESPNFC and the New York Times and 442, and I suppose anywhere else Cristian can get some work. How are you, sir?
I'm not too bad, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm good. It is, as we were speaking before we came on the air, it is transfer deadline day. It's a very exciting time when helicopters are flying through the air and Jim White is making everybody go just a little bit back crap insane. And today, specifically, the reason for getting you on the air is you're there. You're at Sunderland. You see this on a daily basis. What's going on with this club now? They get a big win over Stoke. and move out of the drop zone. And I suppose we should get to the club ramifications of that eventually. But from an American perspective, and I'm going to be selfish here, Kristan, it's about Jozy Altidore. It has not gone well. He has 2 goals in all competitions after scoring buckets of goals in Holland, and there is some talk that he may be on the block today.
Yeah, I think that talk is a tad wide of the mark. His agent has already come out and said that he's very happy at Sunderland. I'm not sure if he is that happy at Sunderland, but from what I was hearing from people close to the club, it was a deal that was very much a non-starter because they don't want to be losing first-team players. As goal-shy as Jozy has been this season, I think there was certainly a degree of potential shown in that game against Stoke. He was able to put himself into some good positions and also cause some trouble with his physicality. I think for him it's just about melding into that squad and hopefully finally getting into a situation where the tactics are conducive to his attributes.
Yeah, it's obviously been a tumultuous time at Sunderland with Di Canio and now with Poyet, and there's a lot of talk when players make the move to the Premier League that there is an adjustment period. It doesn't seem like Jozy's been given the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not saying that he necessarily should have been based on how much they spent and the type of club Sunderland is, but it's been particularly harsh in the press there. Do you think that that's having any impact on him? I mean, we don't know his inner monologue, but do you think that's having an impact on him?
I think it's going to. It has to. Unfortunately for him, as you mentioned, the narrative before he'd even kind of kicked a ball for Sunderland was, well, he's been in the Premier League before, and that wasn't exactly the most fruitful of times of his career. I've always kind of been keen to stress that at that point he was 19 years old, and it was 4 years ago. Now, a lot can change in 4 years, and I think for Jozy it really has. As you say, though, the press has been very damning of him lately. There was a match rating given to him quite recently after the FA Cup tie that said he didn't really look out of place against a non-league team, which I thought was a tad harsh. There's certainly been a drop from him, I think, mentally. If you watch him, and I am kind of drawn to watching him, just his body language doesn't always seem the most positive and like he's really enjoying himself. There'll be spurts, certainly, but I think it's starting to wear on him just a little bit.
I certainly think that he makes it a little bit harder on himself with that body language. I think his frustration is understandable sometimes. I mean, look, this is a subjective game, Kristan. It's difficult to really pin down how much of this is just Jozy Altidore not being very good and how much of it is a function of how Sunderland operates. Things have gotten a little bit better under Poyet, but here's the troubling thing, and for U.S. fans who are looking ahead to a World Cup where we need Jozy Altidore in form, the fact that they've recalled Connor Wickham, whatever you think of him, and the fact that they've signed Ignacio Skoko does not bode well for Jozy's future in terms of playing time.
I think superficially, yes, it does look as if that's a concern because on the surface of things, those are 2 strikers who've come into the football club. From my understanding, though, Wickham is certainly someone they're trying to shop around, be it on loan or a permanent deal, because it's just not really worked for him, to be very blunt. Skoko, I was talking to someone the other day. I think you have to read a little bit more into that one because he's a completely different striker to Jozy, first and foremost. He played at Newell's Old Boys and has said since arriving, Poyet has told him that Sunderland will operate in a similar style to that Newell's side. And in that side, he was very much a deeper lying forward, a false 9 type. Okay. And I think he's been brought to give them creativity in the final third because it's something that they've lacked for most of this season. It's of late, during the little resurgence in the new year, Adam Johnson has kind of taken the creative mantle on. But you need more than just one player to do that. And I think that's essentially what they're looking for Skoko to give them.
I'm watching Twitter, and again, it's deadline day, Kristan, so it's going to be fast and furious, and some Twitter account I've never seen before is reporting that PSV is in play for a loan deal for Jozy. Now, I'll say that just to add some background, I don't know that this is where it's coming from, but yesterday, a guy I follow here retweeted or tweeted out a screenshot of Jozy Altidore following the official PSV account and used that as a joke. Hey, look, hot transfer rumor. I kind of spread it a little bit in the spirit of fun. I hope that's not where that's coming from, but things have been built upon less.
Yes, certainly. In the modern world with Twitter and social media, these rumours are very easily found and proliferate. The thing is, though, I think the fact that his agent's already come out and rubbished it kind of tells you where it's at. I think he would perhaps say nothing if there was even a chance of this happening. And like I say, I think with the Skoko arrival, you have to remember that actually it could be quite beneficial to Jozy, because for me, the biggest thing that he's lacked this season is service. I don't think he's the kind of player or the kind of striker who's autonomous enough to create his own chances. He needs things built for him, which is fine. And in a creative, shy side, that's not going to happen. Now, with Skoko around, there's every potential that they will go 4-3-3 and either have Skoko at the head of that three, dropping into the space and creating for perhaps Altidore in a wide position, or place Altidore up top and then Skoko on the left-hand side of him with Johnson on the right. There's a number of options beginning to present themselves that could help him and Stephen Fletcher, who, again, is another striker that's been goal shy. I think when you consider Fletcher only has 3 goals this season, it tells you that the side is struggling. And I think if you compare the two, it's a bit harsh to kind of, rough ride Jozy so much when actually another one who struggled.
In the short term, look, this was a big move for Jozy because he had obviously had the poor stint at Hull, which to add some context, that was Hull. And then had gone on and managed to find his legs in Holland and score a bunch of goals. This was obviously a big move. He green-lighted the move to Sunderland. There was some question about whether or not that was the right decision for him. Is there something? Does he symbolically need to stick it out? Do you think, as a relatively young striker? I mean, in European terms, he's really not. But in American terms, clearly he's got some more development to do. Is sticking it out sort of more beneficial psychologically for him than, say, taking a loan back to Holland, or, as has been discussed here, potentially coming back to MLS?
Well, I think, was it not Michael Jordan who said I was only able to succeed because I failed time and time again? I think as long as Jozy's at Sunderland, he's got every chance of shaking off and making sure that the tag of being a flop doesn't attach itself to him. I think if he takes the loan move hypothetically back to Holland, then it confirms his status. And looking at him, having spoken to him briefly during the USA-Scotland game, I think he's a determined young man, and I think he's someone who wants to see this out. It's not a case of, would he take... I think he wants to put as much into this and will not want to leave until every bridge has been crossed and cannot be crossed again. It's a difficult situation for him, of course. He's in a side, as I said, that aren't really playing to his attributes. I don't think are playing to his strengths, and are putting him in a lot of tight areas where his feet, which I think are one thing that are perhaps a weakness of his, are being showed up. I think if he's given the opportunity with someone like Skoko and a more conducive style, there's every chance he could hit things back on. But if it's still a situation like this in the summer, then I guess he has to look at potentially leaving and saying, well, you know what, this was a situation we tried. I would be amazed if he hasn't learned things from this, not only about himself, but about the game in general. Because Poyet is a very good tactical manager and thus will have been able to impart some wisdom on him, if not goals and playing time.
Yeah, I suppose that the part of this is that no matter how much better it gets and whether Poyet changes the tactics of the team or not, a 4-3-3 may be more beneficial if Jozy is at the head and there are players higher up the field to draw away some of that defensive attention. But there's still a ceiling on this. I mean, Sunderland's not going to become a goal-scoring juggernaut overnight. So, there's still, even if he finds his legs a little bit and gets a couple of goals, it's unlikely there's going to be any rampant form, probably for anybody at this point.
No, I don't think, as you say, there's going to be some firework-like explosion of goals at the Stadium of Light anytime soon. And for that reason, I think he has to take the summer, go to the World Cup, hopefully score a clutch of goals for the US and get them further than last time, and then come back and really assess things, because I think it's a huge summer for Sunderland. They had 9 players that are potentially out of contract in the summer. A few of them have been able to shift today. They've sent a few of the summer signings out on loan, Diakite to Fiorentina, and Cabral had already gone to Genoa. So for me, there's going to be extensive sweeping changes at that football club in the summer as Poyet tries to impart more and more of his ideology onto the club. The early signs have been quite promising. If you took a table from when he started to now, I think it'd be about 10th or about mid-table-ish, which is probably the biggest indication of praise you can give towards Poyet as things have gone. And for that reason, I think maybe Jozy just needs to take his next step with a hint of caution, just to see, well, is going back to Holland the right idea? Is it really going to be pushing himself? Because for me, it has to be a sideways step. It really can't be a backwards one for him at this age.
Now, a lot of what happens in the summer and what Poyet is able to do is going to be dictated by whether or not they stay up. They get a win. They are now out of the drop zone for the time being. Long way to go. Could easily fall back into it, but this has got to be some kind of psychological boost for that club.
Oh, hugely. Poyet even said that himself. He said that he'd very much pinpointed the 3 games, the Stoke midweeks, Newcastle following, and then Hull next weekend, as being very much a deciding factor on how things would go in terms of giving them a huge boost of momentum moving into that important part of the season. Now, they picked up a win against Stoke. It certainly wasn't a pretty game, and not really the most enjoyable one I've ever watched. But it was the result that they needed. They go to Newcastle tomorrow, I think, as favourites personally, just because of the mini turmoil that's unfolding at St James's Park. And then they welcome a whole side that themselves are in pretty dire form at the minute. So the building blocks are set up in the right order for Sunderland to build up on that and to really propel themselves up there. But as you say, it's a very tight situation at the bottom at the minute. So you have to be very careful, I think, to read too much into a few games. It's one that you have to constantly monitor. And I think for Sunderland, there are positives at least. They're starting to pick up in performance. They're starting to do the little things right that perhaps weren't there during Di Canio's tenure and the early throes of Poyet.
Now, right now there are 10 teams. The bottom half of the table is separated by 6 points. So there will be a lot of movement down there as the season goes along. But right now, as things sit, Sunderland 17th, West Ham, Fulham, Cardiff. Below them, Cardiff has players incoming. Wilfried Zaha on loan, Fabio on loan. Fulham is making moves. Is Sunderland going to do anything in the next 7 plus hours?
They're going to, but it won't be incoming.
It'll be outgoing. Yeah,
the outgoings. They've already shuffled a few of their development squad chaps up to Scotland. They've also, as I mentioned, their Diakite joined Fiorentina. The last one that looks like leaving for them will be Lee Cattermole to Stoke City. I think that's about 75% done as things stand at the minute. The reason he's being allowed to go is because of the player they signed this morning, a chap called Liam Bridcut. Now, without wishing to build him up too much, Poyet said after the FA Cup win over Newcastle last year, if I was coach of Real Madrid, I would take him because he deserves to go to the highest level.
Wow.
Now, that's quite a ringing endorsement.
Yes.
And I think it's typical Poyet, because he does love to really build his players up and then fill them right to the brim with confidence. He is a very talented player, and I think he deserves this opportunity. The benefit he will bring is he has a very good disciplinary record for a defensive midfielder, and he retains possession very well. Now, if you consider Sunderland have had 46% possession on average this season, it's been a huge issue for them, the centre of the park. They've really not had quality there. So getting him alongside Key and whoever he chooses as third option instantly improves the situation at that club.
It'll be a fascinating latter half of the season in Sunderland. At this point, look, it's obviously very difficult to put your finger on how things are going to go from here on out. They have made progress under Poyet. You mentioned they'd be 10th in the table if you took it from when he joined the club. There has been progress. Whatever their goal scoring issues, they are not necessarily the worst team in the league in that regard. Can they maintain this? And really, look, they're not safe. I mean, we know that. But if you had to put if you had to place a bet on them staying up or going down, where would you fall?
I think they'll stay up. I think the changes that Poyet has made are tangible in terms of he shifted them to possession-based. If you look at all the signings this January, right back to the first one, Marcus Alonso, they either understand the system that's being implemented. Virginie and Scocco played at Newell's in a nigh identical system. Bridcut the same at Brighton, or they have the talent or the attributes that he's really after. In Alonso's case, he's improved their left side dramatically with his ability to produce in the final third with some consistency. And for that reason, I think there's enough there for them. It may not be, as I said, a bit like the Stoke game, it may not be the prettiest of escapes, but in that case, you don't really care how you escape relegation, as long as you don't see the dreaded R next to your name after game 38. And I think that Sunderland have got enough. They've got some very good home fixtures as well, some very winnable home fixtures still to come. And again, if they can, very much like Poyet said, if they can start with a victory against Newcastle tomorrow, then instantly that further raises confidence. You've got the cup final to look forward to as well. And for me, it's going to be a momentum builder, and I think Sunderland have got enough to stay up in there. Hopefully, with Jozy scoring a few as well.
Hopefully for us, yes, absolutely. Look, that derby will be hotly contested, and obviously it means a lot for Sunderland at this point in the season. All right, Cristian Nyari, go find him on Twitter, KHENAGE on Twitter. Follow him. He will, I'm sure, be tweeting throughout the day as transfer deadline day continues on. Chris, and I got the Fabio thing wrong. He's on a permanent move to Cardiff. Sorry. Anything else, Kristan, before I let you go?
No. Just look forward to the derby tomorrow.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
It goes right back to the 1600s.
All right, let's take a break. Thank you, Kristan. We'll be right back. When we come back, Curt Onalfo, head coach of the new LA Galaxy 2 USL Pro entry, Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Stay there.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning, joined now by LA Galaxy assistant coach and newly named head coach of LA Galaxy 2, Curt Onalfo. Hi, Curt. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good. I appreciate you taking some time. This is a fascinating story, a development in American soccer, a very groundbreaking thing for the LA Galaxy to do, to place a full team in USL Pro for this season. And let me start with sort of the thinking that went into this decision. Why do it this way rather than partner up the way so many MLS teams have done with USL Pro?
Well, first of all, I mean, we have the luxury of having such a great facility over here with the StubHub Center. Mm-hmm. There's lots of fields. We have the track field where we can play our games. We have the stadium field. We have all these beautiful training fields. So we have the facilities where we could handle it in-house and really control it. So, there's a couple ways to do it. Obviously, you can partner up with another team, but having everybody local in the exact same building, we felt like was really appealing and something that's going to help us, at the end of the day, develop players for our first team and make sure that we can have a great place for our homegrown players to move forward in the way they should.
Now, as the first team to do this, what was the decision-making process? How long did it take before, as an organization, go ahead.
This has been in the works for a long time, and Chris Klein and Bruce Arena have to take the credit for that. They're visionaries, and Chris wants to make sure all this. This is he's been really the driving force behind this for quite some time. So it's been in the works for more than a year.
So what's the first thing when you set goals for this team, as you again do something that hasn't been done before? What kind of things are you writing down on that list?
Well, first of all, in terms of putting this together, we have to do it very quickly. We're actually going to start preseason training on Tuesday. The guys will actually be on Monday getting their physicals. So it's something that it's definitely taken. It's very time consuming and something that there's a ton of work to be done that we got to continue to get better and better with. But in terms of goals, it has a lot of goals and a lot of objectives. That's really kind of intriguing. We are the Galaxy, and we want to make sure that we put a product on the field that is able to win. But our primary focus is to develop players for the first team. End of story. So that's a goal, an objective. There's also an objective of making sure our players that aren't getting significant minutes for the first team Galaxy are staying sharp, and so it's a platform for them to continue to develop and stay sharp, and that will in turn help our first team. If players in the first team need a place to play to come back from injury, that's a spot. We can develop, it's a platform for developing our homegrown players, where they're getting great training and games that matter. So there's all these different things, and at the same time, you want to do the best possible job so that you can create a winning environment, because that's what the Galaxy is all about. So there's a lot to juggle. There's going to be a lot to manage, but it's definitely a very, very exciting project.
I feel like it's nearly impossible for the roster rules that are being applied to this team to be any more complicated than MLS rules, Curt. But there is going to be several different types of players, as you mentioned. Is there? And I imagine that'll be difficult. I guess the issue that I'm confused about is the players that are signed to this particular club. What's their relationship with the parent club? I'm not really positive.
Well, it is. It's not an easy thing to kind of from the outside looking at to figure out, and think about me as the coach, because I have to manage all these aspects. So we'll have some players that are loaned to us from the first team.
Okay.
Probably four players, depending on how we are with injuries and that kind of stuff. So we'll have 3 or 4 players that are, primarily that are basically going to be with us full time, and they're going to be our young players. They're going to be our homegrown type players, and then we could have as many as 7 players that are loaned from the first team, just depending on the situation. So that would be a situation where it'd be paperwork done, guys would be loaned down, they play a game, and then they go back with the first team. So, but I can't rely on all those guys, all right? So what we have to do is build a roster, sign anywhere from 16 to 20 players that are have USL contracts, and then the first team players that come to me, they supplement my roster. So, from my standpoint, in terms of managing things, imagine this: I could be working with a group all week, getting prepared for a game, and then all of a sudden I need to, I take it. And obviously there's going to be, foresight and planning involved. And Bruce and I are very close, and that's, won't be an issue at all. But there'll be times where I have to give a first team player minutes, and I'll have to talk to the player on the USL team and say, look, this is all part of it. Keep your head up and move forward. So there's going to be a lot of managerial issues that are actually very challenging. But certainly things I look forward to, just to make sure that everybody's motivated and moving towards the same goals.
What will the academy presence be? I mean, there's been some talk, and it's mentioned in the team release that academy players will be part of this as well.
Well, there's nothing that doesn't change, and that's the exact same thing that is currently the situation with MLS teams. I coached our reserve team for the last 3 years, and in MLS, and we were able to call up academy players. Right. And in fact, we had a lot of our academy players get minutes in reserve games, and it'll be the same thing. We'll take our best academy players. They're going to train with us whenever they can. Certainly in the summer, more so during the school year because they're in school, most of them. And then some of them will flat out kind of try to sign, and other guys will just supplement the roster. So, it's going to be a great platform for our really talented academy players to get better training and to continue with their development.
Now, you mentioned at the top there that obviously the goal of this team is to prepare players for the Galaxy's first team. How will that affect? And then you said, obviously you've coached the reserve team the last couple of years. How does that impact your decision-making process, either in game or even before preparing for a match?
Well, it's a great question because I'm a big believer in developing players, and I always have. Even my teams in MLS when I was a head coach, I played a lot of young guys. And it unfortunately when you do that, sometimes they may cost you because of the youth, but that's how they develop. So. We're going to have that. We're going to strike that balance of there needs to be competition in every position, but I can never lose sight of the fact that we want to develop our young players. So there's going to be times when we have a very, very young team on the field.
There's been some talk and reports that you were actually approached for the Chivas USA job, and I wanted to ask you about whether or not this opportunity with LA Galaxy 2 played a role in that, or what was your thinking?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was, with not going into too much detail, that was, they sought me out, and at the end of the day, we weren't able to come to really just, we weren't able to come close enough to what I envisioned that needed to be set in place for me to leave such a great organization like the Galaxy. I knew I had this opportunity to coach the Galaxy too, which is something that I'm really excited about. You're talking about, the majority of the roster are going to be players that are 17 to 23 years old, which is a great age where you can really kind of drive these players forward and help them with their career. There's a lot of aspects in coaching that I love and that I really enjoy, and probably on the top of the list is developing young players into pros and teaching them the way. So this has always been an intriguing project for me. My family's very happy here with the Galaxy. My son is in the academy, so he's on the U16 team. So this is somewhere, the Galaxy is an organization where I feel like I'm very much valued, and for me to leave it has to be the right situation. I've been a head coach in the league. It's not my first rodeo, so I know what they're very, very difficult jobs, and I want to coach again in MLS, but it has to be a situation where I know that I have the best possible chance to have the success that I know I'm capable of. So. It certainly played a factor, and my focus is on Galaxy 2.
How familiar are you with USL Pro and sort of the quality across the league? I mean, obviously there's going to be some differences, and then I've also been asked to pass along a question about the sort of the back-to-back games that tend to happen in this league. There's travel costs or obviously a concern for a lower division, and they pack games on top of each other. How does that impact your coaching and in terms of advantage in getting something?
All really good questions. In terms of the league, we played against teams. We played against the LA Blues last year with my reserve team, so I have an idea of the caliber. I've studied, the league over the last 6 weeks. Am I an expert on it? By no means, I'm not. I honestly want to do things. My attitude is, I have a very much an entrepreneurial spirit, and I want to create something that's ours. Within the Galaxy framework. So I'm not that concerned about, the caliber and what USL is all about. I want to do things our way and the way that, the Galaxy does things, play a certain brand, make sure that we mimic very much what Bruce is doing with the first team. And just close out our developmental structure from our academy. So, and I want to try to raise the standard, at least for this team. So we're trying to be very creative and pushing the bar and doing it our way. And it's certainly this first year will be a learning process. We're going to make some mistakes, for sure. Hopefully not too many. But it's certainly exciting. In terms of the scheduling, something I've fought pretty hard. If you look at our schedule, it's actually pretty good. There's only one time where we're going to be like in Phoenix on a Friday and have to come back and play against the Orange County Blues on a Sunday, which to me is it's not something that that is ideal, but it's all part of it. There's a lot of investment that goes into this. So I have to manage it. And what I'll do in that occasion is I'll utilize my roster. That we'll just plan ahead, make sure that we get enough of the first team guys. I'll probably use academy guys, and we'll just spread ourselves a little thinner, which is fine. And it's going to mean minutes for some of our really young players. So it'll be exciting. But that part isn't ideal, but you know what? It's not a perfect world at this point, but there's a lot of money being put into this from not only our ownership, but also the other teams. So I understand it. I mean, there's a major cost. I mean, imagine you have to fly all the way across the country and that kind of stuff. You got to get games in. So, and then there's another stretch where I think we have, a whole bunch of games in a short amount of time, and that's when we'll stretch our roster, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get the results. But if we do everything properly and plan it accordingly, and we don't have a ton of injuries, we'll be able to get through it.
Yeah, it looks like you got the LA Blues on July 26th, the Harrisburg City Islanders on the 30th in Harrisburg, and then
that's the one.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's the crazy one. Yeah, that one will just we'll have to utilize our roster. If I'm not mistaken, that's in June. Is that correct?
End of July, first week of August.
Yeah. So we'll have, So that part. That's going to be a little bit of a difficult challenge, but we'll get through it.
Again, there's a lot of moving parts, and as you said, you have to get this together pretty quickly, and even some of the rules are being tweaked. I mean, Alexi Lalas is on Twitter explaining that MLS is having to fix some things just so that the Galaxy don't have a massive advantage by having an LA Galaxy 2. I mean, clearly the league wants this stuff to happen, but not all of these things have been thought through. And I got a question on Twitter. I don't even know if there's an answer to this. How will USL contracted players have the opportunity to move up to the first team? Is that something that can even happen?
Yes, it can. I mean, one, they would have to be discovered by the Galaxy, so they would be eligible to be for the Galaxy. And then two, there needs to be room in the Galaxy's first team roster,
right,
to be able to bring somebody up. So there is, the realistic thing though is this. I mean, you're talking MLS roster has between 27 and 30 players. Okay. So the likelihood of a guy during the season that's on a USL roster to be called up to be, unless there's like hardship, like all of a sudden you have all these injuries, it's not that likely. What if this is? It's a platform for a guy to prove to us for a year, you know what? I should be on the Galaxy, right? So this is their opportunity. This is their showcase right here. And then all they got to do is move one locker room down and they're playing for the Galaxy.
Yeah, and the flip side of the discovery point, though, Curt, is that other teams can discover your non-homegrown players, correct?
In theory, yeah.
Okay.
In theory, but keep in mind, if they do, right, and they want to sign him, they're going to have to buy him from the Galaxy.
That's true. They have to.
I mean, like, you know, it's those are the things that'll be sorted, but those are details. You know,
Sure.
great. I'm glad Alexi's tweeting about it. You know why? Because at the end of the day, what this is going to do is overnight our U23 Olympic team program, as soon as 3 or 4 other MLS teams are doing this on their own and they're controlling it,
Mm-hmm.
our national team program is going to overnight get better.
Mm. Is that something that you've had that big picture thing? I mean, again, groundbreaking.
It's not my job as the Galaxy 2 coach, but you know, being a guy that played in the Olympics in 1992 and was a product of our youth system and loves this country and wants the U.S. to produce the best players and teams possible. I mean, I think about it. I think it's great. So. We want to be able to compete at every level. We want to continue to, have better players that can play in MLS and help grow this game and give our fans, something to be excited about. So, I don't want to see our Olympic team or under 20 team or our U17 team not qualify for. Mm-hmm. Tournaments. We want to be pushing the bar, and we're investing a lot of money in our academy league, at the younger ages. So all that stuff doesn't matter if you don't have anything on top. I mean, MLS is such a competitive league now that how can you, as a young player, get into that? It's very difficult. I mean, there's not too many stories anymore of these really young guys just popping into the league, right?
That's very true.
It's a hard league.
Eddie, as I close out here, let you go. Is there any? Do you feel extra pressure being the guinea pig?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, this. I'm. At the end of the day, I'm. My feet are always kind of on the ground. I feel very, very fortunate. If you can make a living in soccer, I mean, what else? I mean, what else is there? And so. I put pressure on myself because I want to be successful, but there's a, at the end of the day, if we're winning every single game, we probably have to reevaluate this.
Right.
Because are we giving young players enough time to develop? Mm-hmm. I mean, so there's a lot of different, for me, I'm going to, I want to achieve all the objectives that I have on my board. And learn in the process, because this is a totally different endeavor, and I want to progress and I want to help the Galaxy. So I don't mind being the guinea pig. I've been it before.
Curt Onalfo, assistant coach at LA Galaxy, now the head coach of LA Galaxy 2, a groundbreaking new team. LA Galaxy are entering into USL Pro this season. Thank you very much for your time, Curt. I appreciate your candid responses. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. All right,
best of luck.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Excellent. I mean, look, I think getting our brains around this thing that the Galaxy are doing is interesting. And you know what? Of course, it's the Galaxy. And say what you want. You can hate on the Galaxy all you want. And yeah, they have to figure some rules out. And as Alexi was tweeting, they have to make sure that there's no advantages to LA towards an MLS roster by having a USL Pro team to stock players. But the Galaxy deserve credit for doing this. And really, I think, maybe if it's somebody else without the resources, without the name brand, maybe it doesn't have the same kind of impact. And yeah, that'll depend on how successful they are. It's going to take a couple years to really determine how well the Galaxy are doing with this. Are they really producing players out of it? Are their players really getting better? Or are they finding players who are contracted to this team in ways other teams are not? And then we will start to see the snowball roll down the hill. And other teams may pick up this baton and try to do it themselves. All right. We got a couple minutes until Brian McBride joins us. It just never stops here at Soccer Morning. So why don't I open up the phone lines, 347-756-6276. That seems like a good idea, right? So we'll do that now. Maybe transfer deadline stuff. Let's do some transfer deadline stuff, right? I'm catching up on the news here. This just in, we're hearing reports that Wolves are set to sign Wickham's highly rated defender, Courtney House. Okay, there's some transfer deadline day news. This one in, one out at Bolton following the signing of Liam Trotter. Striker Craig Davies leaving Reebok Stadium to join Preston on loan. All right, what else we got here? Leicester signing striker Martin Waghorn. Oh, sorry. Confirmation, Leicester striker Martin Waghorn heads out on loan to Wigan. Okay, excellent big-time news there. I'm just scrolling here. I'm looking for somebody I've heard of. Update on Arsenal's pursuit of midfielder Kim Kallström. The Sweden international has been at the club's training ground to complete his move from Spartak Moscow until the end of the season. Chelsea's Gael Kakuta could be headed to Lazio. Okay, Manchester United, youngster at Manchester United, Tom Thorpe, heading to Birmingham. This is fantastic stuff. We are really just tearing up transfer deadline day. It's... Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous, though, but it's fun. Are you guys having fun? I'm having fun. All right, let me get rid of that music. All right, there we go. If you have thoughts on LA Galaxy 2, any of the deadline stuff, I mean, look, the rumors are really very hard to pin down. A lot of this stuff, what I was just reading here from Sky Sports as they update their feed, is lower level stuff. I mean, here's Mitch Glue ending up at Mitchell Glau, whatever, however you say his name, ending up at Fulham. That's a relatively big move just based on his profile. Fulham obviously needs help at the moment. A lot of these other moves, lower level stuff, could be key for these clubs, but we're not talking about blockbusters here. We've got a couple of minutes again. Brian McBride coming up in just a couple of minutes. So let me go ahead and just kind of review a couple of other stories. I mentioned St. Louis's candidacy for MLS yesterday. I mentioned that I maybe underrated St. Louis a little bit. I certainly underrated Minneapolis in the race for number 24. Now, that comes with the context that just because Don Garber says we want 24 by 2020, or we're going to get to 24 by 2020, doesn't mean they're going to stop at 24. Even though it looks like they're going to get all of those teams named well ahead of 2020, they're not necessarily going to stop. He didn't say that's our cap. He said they were going to pause at 20. How long did MLS pause at 20 teams? Half a second? I don't know. 20 teams did not happen for very long. We've already got 21 named. 22 and 23 are coming quickly. LeBron James is in the press talking about how excited he is about the Miami experiment with David Beckham. That's happening. Miami is happening. Atlanta, probably happening. All signs point to happening. So number 24. I've mentioned San Antonio. I mentioned Charlotte. I mentioned St. Louis. I mentioned Minneapolis. Now, the thing that in the case of one thing is not like the others. St. Louis does not currently have a professional team. Charlotte has the Eagles, who are going to drop down to PDL. Their franchise rights will go to the lacrosse owner, the pro lacrosse owner in that town, and he'll put them in a bigger stadium and play in the USL Pro. San Antonio's obviously got the NASL Scorpions. We know about that. Minnesota has Minnesota United FC in the NASL. We know about that. St. Louis, if part of this deal, and Orlando City has clearly set the stage for this, despite the fact that Miami's pro soccer really isn't tied into their bid. It's being driven by Beckham. And Atlanta's isn't really being driven by the Silverbacks. You still feel like they need a pro soccer presence to justify any potential MLS interest. Well, it looks like that's going to happen. I've been told that the St. Louis Lions, a PDL team, are partnering with the local indoor team, the MISL team, and they will be putting out an outdoor pro team in 2015. I don't know where they're playing. I don't know many details beyond that. This is what I've heard. I imagine that this is big news for fans of soccer in St. Louis, even if, and the St. Louligans, I mentioned them yesterday, they get another mention here on Soccer Morning, are probably happy. And whether or not USL Pro is where you want to be as a St. Louis soccer fan, it is a step forward. After the debacle that was AC St. Louis, after Jeff Cooper just wiped out professional soccer in St. Louis with incredible mismanagement, just to have a pro team back in St. Louis is a step in the right direction. And again, I'll say this. St. Louis needs to have pro outdoor soccer. They need to. I mean, whether or not they eventually get into MLS, let's put that to the side. This is St. Louis is the richest region for American soccer history, this side of Philadelphia, that side of Philadelphia. And for them to not have a pro team is sort of ridiculous. I'm glad that they're going to get one. It's exciting. It's exciting to see pro outdoor soccer returning to St. Louis. I imagine this team will be run a little differently than AC St. Louis, and hopefully it'll hold on. All right, let's take a break very, 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 very quickly. When we come back, Brian McBride will join us. You're not going to want to miss that one. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, Kick TV. Soccer Morning, NASN.TV, Jason Davis, and on the line with me now, happy to have U.S. great, Fulham great, Columbus Crew great, Chicago Fire. Brian McBride's on the line. Hi, Brian.
How are you?
And Fox analyst. I shouldn't leave that out as you are currently analyzing the game. Is that how difficult was that transition for you, by the way?
Yeah, it was a strange transition, not just because it's going from playing to talking, but then talking, being succinct and getting your point out without going on a different tangent in about 15 seconds. So, you can always learn and get better, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm enjoying it, though. It's definitely a process that, I'm having fun with.
The radio format much better for tangents, Brian. I can tell you that from experience. I can go wherever I want to go, and no one tells me to stop talking. I got air to fill. All right, so we're ahead of a U.S. national team game at the StubHub Center tomorrow, USA-Korea. This is a domestic roster that Jurgen Klinsmann has called in. Obviously, lots of talk about how many of these guys are probably going to be on the World Cup squad. And Jurgen took them to Brazil, and this is the capper here. What do you think he's trying to see, and what do you expect to see out of this team tomorrow night?
Well, I guess I expect the same thing, the continued success of moving forward. And I think that when a group's together for this long a period, you start to see a lot more continuity than, say, when you get guys coming in from all over and in for a week. So they're going to be fit, I would imagine. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for some of the guys that really haven't had the chance, and some of the young guys that don't have the experience to get that experience.
You're going to be out at the game, I imagine?
I am. I'm here with Allstate. I'm going to be out there at the Fan Center, signing some autographs from 12 to 1:30 tomorrow. Have everybody come out. But I'm also here. We're doing a thing it's really nice, being able to get out to the community, and something's called Good Hands FC. It's basically an opportunity for myself and Allstate to get involved with some local youth players that haven't necessarily had the opportunity to continue the growth, whether it's financial or equipment based, and we reach out to them and have a good time, and that's later tonight.
Excellent. Let me ask you, as a former striker, as a guy who knows how streaky that job can be and how much confidence plays into it, there's a little bit of consternation over the state of the U.S. striker pool, mostly because Jozy Altidore is struggling at Sunderland. When you watch him play, what stands out for you in terms of, whether he's effective or not in that system that Gus Poyet's trying to put out?
Well, when I watch him play, you can see that his willingness to work is there, and I think in the past sometimes you'd question that. He's got the extreme talent. He's shown in the past that he can score goals for clubs at a high level. He did that in Holland, but making that transition is always difficult from one team to the next. And with Jozy and the style they're playing, he's basically been asked to be the outlet. And sure, I know that sometimes he could do a better job of holding the ball and bringing his teammates in, but there's plenty of times I've seen late in the game especially when he's come on as a sub, and he has been effective. I think for us as U.S. soccer fans, we want to see that the different Jozy, the one where he would be basically lengthening the field, getting up in between backs, and less of the fight. And right now, when your club is in a relegation battle, a lot of times you have to fight. It's not pretty, and I think people are definitely getting on him on that. And the lack of goals, of course, is always going to be something that jumps out at you too. But for U.S. soccer, and excuse me, for us as U.S. soccer fans, we definitely want him to gain that confidence you're talking about. And some of the times you get a chance to step away from Sunderland and coming back in with the national team, and hopefully just kickstarting his year off.
What you mentioned him as the outlet, and obviously when you're playing a target role in that type of system, there's only so much you can do, and I wonder if there's something to be said about it. It seems to me he receives the ball, and even if he brings it down, even if he has a good first touch, there's nobody within 20 yards of him. There's no teammates within 20 yards of him. How does he make that work?
Yeah, well, that's got to be sorted out with his teammates. I think that connection he needs. He needs someone that can come underneath him, and a lot of times you see him battling two guys like you're talking about, and I think he's done a pretty good job of that. I think what I'd like to see is someone that, like I said, can sort of drop off of him. Too many times when he does a good job of bringing the ball down, he'll be playing the ball out wide, and he'll have to make up the ground. For him to get in the box after that transition is very difficult. I mean, Johnson's a very quick winger, and he seems to be getting forward a lot more, and Barini, and those guys are quick. So if you're playing the ball out to them, you're already 20 yards behind. It's sometimes difficult to make the box. So, those are, I think, difficult questions that when a coach is in a relegation battle, how do you, one, make sure that you're not open at the back and open to too many possibilities of getting a goal scored against you, and really transitioning into an attacking play. And it is a group thing. So hopefully that sort of gets figured out, so he's not battling the whole time.
People talk about the adjustment period to the Premier League a lot, and obviously Jozy hasn't been at Sunderland more than half a season at this point, so I don't know if we should be giving him the benefit of the doubt on that front or not. And from your own experience, how long did it take you to really feel comfortable, and do you believe that that's a truism, that there is an adjustment period?
Yeah, I think there definitely is an adjustment period, and I know that Jozy had been there in the past. He was there on loan, but I think the biggest adjustment is when you don't have a settled team. Say it's not just the players; it's if the coaching staff keeps changing, and for him being there, less than a year, he's already had 2 different coaches. It sometimes makes it a little more difficult to make that transition and really get your feet settled. And for me, it took a good 6-7 months to just not even necessarily the soccer side, just having your life feel like you've got a rhythm to it, and where you want to go when you wake up in the morning. When you're done with training, okay, I can find what I want to eat here. I can do those sort of things. And fortunately for me, I had a support system in my wife and my kids, and those are always things that are helpful. But sure, there's a big transition period, and some people grasp it quicker, and some take a little bit longer. I think that's
an excellent point. I think people forget about everything that happens off the field. All of that stuff impacts how you play, certainly. But this being transfer deadline day, Brian, and as a guy who spent a long time in England, what was this kind of day, whether it's in January or in the summer? What was it like for you? I mean, it never impacted you as a player, but what was it like kind of sitting on the sidelines watching all this madness happen?
Yeah, if you're not involved in any of it, it's pretty fun. The problem comes when you find out, someone's come in for you late, or someone's come in from one of your teammates that you think you really want to stay, and those parts are the parts where you're like, okay, we could be done with this. But personally, I think it's a fun thing to watch from a bystander, and for us that aren't involved in it necessarily day to day, for a coach and for players, it can be overwhelming. But listen, today Fulham signed Mitroglou, so I'm very happy about that. That should help out.
Yeah, the fortunates of Fulham. I mean, look, they're in the drop zone. That's not a good thing, and it's been a tumultuous season. They're bringing in some reinforcements. How do you feel about the rest of the campaign?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really exciting signing today. And we're talking about Jozy and his transition, and Clint, the same thing. Anytime you come in from your off season, it takes a little while to get going. You can see that, of course, he's got all the talent in the world, and he will get going. It's just getting up to speed, really. But that's the same with all the new signings, and I certainly hope that they get everything sorted out correctly and go on a good run.
The recent trend of players like Clint, who now he's on loan at Fulham, but he made the big move back to MLS, and now Michael Bradley. Some talk about the fortunes of Americans in Europe and whether or not there's enough respect. There's been some stories out there, and Herculez Gomez has talked about how he doesn't really think it's worth it necessarily anymore. As sort of a trailblazing kind of guy and a guy who enjoyed his time in England, where do you think all of that sits right now? And when Klinsmann says there's no demand, what does he mean?
Well, I don't know the demand comment. That's the first time I've heard that. I think,
sorry.
No, that's okay. I think the way I feel about anytime you're trying to make that transition, or you're interested in making that transition to Europe, it's got to be something that's right for you, and it can't just be because your goal is to make more money. It's got to be other things. You have to be willing to work that extra bit harder. You're going to have all that comfort zone and safety. That net is going to be gone, and for some people that pushes you and that makes you a better player because you're trying different things and learning new things. For others, it's a period where you sort of hit the brakes and you don't grow, and that's why I'm for everybody being able to make that decision themselves, and if it's right for them, it's a great opportunity. It definitely will open you up as a player and allow you to grow. But if it's not right, you're going to get in a situation where you're miserable. And I think everybody knows when you're miserable, you're not playing well.
It seems like we've seen a number of players take the first opportunity to go over to Europe, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked out. Well, they've prioritized the wrong thing, like money, as you said, or if they didn't really think it through. But should we be? I guess we shouldn't be painting with a broad brush, is your point?
Yeah, I don't think so, because players might get an opportunity to go to a club that just doesn't suit them. I mean, they might play a different style, or the coach wants them to play in a different way than that he's playing, or he wants to play and wants to grow as a player. And those things are things you will never see on the soccer field. You'll think, oh, you know what, just couldn't cut it, couldn't make it. But they definitely have an impact to you as a person and as a player, your growth and ability to really succeed. So yes, I think it should be an individual basis and really team to team.
Brian McBride, obviously a U.S. soccer great, played at Fulham and Columbus and Chicago and Everton, all of these various places. Out tomorrow at the StubHub Center tonight. Where is the event tonight? I apologize. Sorry.
Yeah, we keep that sort of secret.
Okay.
But we're definitely looking forward to it. It's just going to be a little get together, and it's a great opportunity for not only myself but also Allstate to get out into the marketplace and really put our not stamp but our helping badge on.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, Brian.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Cristian Nyari. We'll move to Germany, talk a little Bundesliga. It's Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Stay there.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning. Thank you to Brian McBride for joining us. Moving quickly now, we're going to jump the Atlantic and go talk, well, Christian's not over the Atlantic. Cristian Nyari from Bundesliga Fanatic joins us. He's in the United States, but he is our German football expert. It's been too long, Cristian.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I don't think we've talked in the new year.
No, we have no. Maybe that's because German football is boring. Maybe that's, or no.
Yeah, there's
a break.
Vacation time.
Yes, the break is what it is. No, that's obviously part of it, but it's good to get back and talk a little Bundesliga with you today.
That was actually one of the big criticisms for many years. The winter break is so long, and that's why we're not so successful in Europe. Now we're successful in Europe. It must be because of the longer winter break.
I love how that narrative has shifted now. And in England, it's, well, our players are terrible in the summer because they're so tired because they don't get a break in the winter.
Yeah.
These things are fantastic.
We should just all throw everything away and admit none of us
don't know
have
anything.
a clue about anything.
No, although to kind of the narrative point, I got to start here with the comments from Hans Joachim Watzke. You're going to give me a bit terrible review for that pronunciation, I'm sure. Dortmund CEO. That's fine. I know how I do with these things. These comments are not. I guess they're really nothing new within the sphere of German football. But just to give some context here and to get your thoughts, he said there's currently no other league that is dominated by one single club like Bayern in the Bundesliga. The situation is not like in the Spanish Liga, but is more like the Scottish League, which is pretty damning. Bayern are hitting back. They want to destroy us. That's the part I love. They want to destroy us and make sure we will never be a danger to them again. And they are doing so by signing our players. We don't stand a chance when our players can earn twice as much elsewhere. Despite everything, we will not change our strategy. There's a little bit more, but give me your thoughts here.
All right. I think even though this looks and reads like a very emotional, angry reaction, I think this is actually calculated and part of Dortmund's kind of marketing strategy, if any. It's
the little guy underdog
playing up the underdog status, which a lot of people, which is becoming very grating on a lot of people in Germany. They just can't stand how humble and practical Dortmund are, but it works very well for them. They've always been successful and achieved the most when the least was expected of them. You know, whether it was winning the league for the first time in 11-12 or, you know, reaching the Champions League final. So it's just playing that up, and it's putting the pressure on the other side. And, you know, in this case, that being Bayern.
You know, I producer Trevor is a Dortmund fan. I am, you know, I'm agnostic when it comes to Germany, but I like Dortmund. I like Jurgen Klopp. I think he's a character, and I love characters.
And why do you like Dortmund?
Why do I like Dortmund?
Yeah, why?
Well, I mean, look, they obviously won things, and they play good football. I mean, that's obviously a part of it. I can't deny that. I will say, though, that none of this, bandwagon host, Trevor says, yeah, that's what it is. I'm jumping on the band. None of the Echte Liebe stuff or maybe this underdog setup, none of that really hit me right. I've always kind of had an odd feeling about the way they present themselves on that front. I mean, I get it. I guess really when you're dealing with Bayern, what else are you going to do? Yeah,
I mean, it's so pervasive that it comes across as insincere and disingenuous, but I don't think it really is. I think the fan base and the fan support and the fan culture really exists in Dortmund, but it's difficult to maybe outside the town or maybe outside of Germany to really wrap your head around that. Well,
I think there's also, I mean, you know, this is an interesting parallel because they are in terms of scope and size, they're different clubs, but you know, there was a backlash against Barcelona and the whole, you know, their mantra more than a club has become kind of, you know, ironic in a way for some people. And you know, it's not necessarily because there's anything wrong, although you can question some of their business decisions. It's because, you know, the popularity gets to a point where there's just a backlash. You really can't help it.
It's the truism of, you know, commercialization removes sincerity in a way. You know, when you have Echte Liebe, you know, on products in your shop, it kind of removes that magic, if you will. Yeah, the
toaster of it, or the toasters that put the club
the coffee mugs, the rubber ducks,
all of that stuff. And the problem is, that you have to do that to compete at this point. I mean, I've seen the images of the new Bernabeu. Have you seen those? That's an insane complex, and doesn't feel like Real Madrid. I mean, old Real Madrid, but is the new reality.
Yeah, I tweeted it looks like a can of sardines. I know, and imagine having like a giant corporate name on that, like Microsoft.
Yeah, and it's going to happen, and people will be disgusted by it, and still
traditionalists will stop going to the stadium for sure.
Well, sure, but those people are a very small percentage of the ultimate football fan base that Real Madrid has to continue to leverage to stay where they are, and Dortmund is finding out and has found out that in order to even have a chance to compete with Bayern Munich, that they have to leverage everything that's at their disposal, and that sometimes is going to turn off your base or a portion of your base, and it's a very difficult balancing act. I mean, I don't want to. I don't like all of that corporate stuff and the commercialization if it goes too far either. I just don't know where the line is, Cristian.
Yeah, and it's an interesting dichotomy, for a club, especially Dortmund, which are they're known for their kind of regionalism and locality. Just they have a very strong local presence based, on the working class in that area, and now they have this huge international presence, which is growing, and it's a matter of finding the balance between still appealing to your base, but also appealing to an international audience, which has a completely different mindset than the guys around you. If that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing these clashes all over the place on a much lower level. Obviously, England's having the controversy over Hull, and just changing the name a little bit to appeal more to an international audience is turning off everybody there locally in Hull, and these things are going to continue. All right, so I don't even want to mention the table. I mean, there's the gap is insane. It's Bayern Munich's a juggernaut at this point. Let's crown them now. In the meantime, though, are we seeing? Is there any activity that we expect to see over the next couple of days as the transfer window gets ready to close in January?
No, I mean, for the most part, it's just been rumors. The Dante and Coles rumors, but I think that's just their agents angling or leveraging for better contracts. The Draxler one was around for a long, long time, and the belief in Germany is that there is an agreement between Arsenal and Schalke, and that he'll join them in the summer, but they decided they kept him, obviously, so Schalke can get into Europe or finish in a European spot, preferably the Champions League. Then he'll be on his way. There's also something about Fabian Johnson.
Okay, we'll get to Fabian Johnson in a second. And I certainly want to ask you. You mentioned Schalke. I'll ask about Jermaine Jones, who always looked like he was leaving and now is apparently on loan in Turkey. The Draxler situation, that belief that there is an agreement in place is conjecture, or is there actual news behind that? Because the last I saw was Arsenal sent a contingent and they talked to Schalke and ultimately decided they couldn't agree on a fee.
But that's what's always put out in situations like this, where the transfer is not immediate, but both player and the opposing coach really, really want each other. And I mean, for the last 2 weeks, it was, Draxler saying that he can imagine seeing himself play in England and wants to play for Arsenal at some point, or wants to play in the Premier League. And Wenger, I think, really wants him as a player as well. And there's been a couple of guys, reputable guys on Twitter from Germany, tweeting similar things, that this is just a kind of thing to take it to the summer, and after Schalke achieve what they want, then they'll make it official.
Okay, let me ask you about that move. If it happens, whether it's now, probably not, or the summer, if that's the truth, there is that a good move for Draxler in your mind?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I think if he goes anywhere abroad, it should probably be Arsenal, of course, because he has a large German contingent there as well. But and he's also working with probably the best coach, in my opinion, as far as developing young players is concerned. And I just think the culture and the atmosphere at Arsenal is changing. It's maybe not to the Arsenal of the Invincibles, because it's certainly a different team, but it's I think it's getting there again. There's kind of an aura around Arsenal again, and a belief. And I think that's only going to have positive effects on the German players. You know, you look at Mertesacker, for example. He was, even in the first couple of months where he joined Arsenal and a year or two before that, he was kind of becoming the joke in German football. You know, a lot of people believe that he doesn't deserve his spot on the national team anymore. You know, he's losing speed. He's not what he was when he was young, coming up at Hanover. And, you know, look at him now. I think he's the best. He's been one of the best, if not the best, defenders in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's interesting. The French manager making a home for German footballers in England. Okay, sure, why not? Now, you mentioned Fabian Johnson. That's obviously of interest to U.S. national team fans. Rumors of a potential move to Crystal Palace, of all places, and perhaps even within the Bundesliga. Is there anything happening with him right now?
Yeah, the last one was before Crystal Palace was Hertha Berlin, but apparently Hertha don't want to spend that kind of money on him. They themselves have some financial issues, so I'm guessing they want to get him on a cheap. But I think the front runner is still Gladbach, who could really use him, and they don't really have anyone else lined up there. And the reason is because they're making room for Johnson, or they're just waiting a little bit more, maybe polishing their bid a little bit, and then really honing in on him. I really think, personally, for him, it would probably be the best move.
Also in the American sphere, but at Schalke, we just talked about Draxler. Jermaine Jones out at Schalke. He's had a tumultuous relationship with that club for the last couple of years. Went on loan. He had a lost period where he went on loan to England. I even forget where he went. Where did he go? Blackburn. He went to Rovers. That's right. So now he's on loan again at Besiktas in Turkey. What precipitated this one?
The fact that they didn't want him at Schalke.
Right.
They were just, well, it was both parties, really. I mean, Schalke couldn't wait to get rid of him. He fell out with a lot of the younger players, a lot of the players on the player committee as well. So he was pretty much out of favor, and he didn't even travel with the team to their winter training camp. He and his agent made it known that they're shopping for clubs in January. So it wasn't a surprise to anyone. And I think Besiktas went for him because a couple of years ago they went for a player from Schalke as well, Fabian Ernst. He was a similar player, very kind of rugged, tough defensive midfielder, and he turned out to be one of their best players in the last couple of years. So I think they're hoping that it's going to have the same effect. But yeah, we're not going to see Jones back at Schalke.
Yeah, eventually this is precipitating a permanent move elsewhere. I mean, there's been rumors of him potentially moving to MLS for some time now. I'm a little iffy on how they could actually make that work. He's kind of in a gray area in terms of name recognition. I mean, clearly he's U.S. international and he's a starter, and that means something. But
hey, do San Jose have a DP spot? Could be part of the rebranding.
I don't know. Speaking of that, I haven't even mentioned that on today's show. I said yesterday I was underwhelmed. It's growing on me a little bit. I don't think it's anything special, but it's growing on me a little bit. And I do like the kits. Do you buy in? By the way, this was a discussion yesterday as well. Do you buy in that a club either has to be red or blue, but not both? What is that?
No, I saw that and I had no.
I think that's an English thing, Christian. I think it's a very English mentality.
Why? Because it's is this a Merseyside thing?
Yeah, apparently it's a Merseyside thing or a Manchester Derby thing or an Arsenal Chelsea. I don't know. It was odd to me. All right.
Well, I mean, I could understand that just really quickly because Bayern, when they were working on new kits a couple of seasons ago, there were rumors that they were integrating like a light blue in their jerseys. And a lot of Bayern fans still have this rivalry with 1860 Munich, who have that blue as their primary jersey color, and that upset them. So I could kind of understand that, but I mean, I don't know if that kind of culture exists here.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, people are married to colors, and you'll see responses if an NFL team or a baseball team make changes on a significant level. I think MLS teams, for the most part, can move within a pretty wide sphere. And it's okay if the Earthquakes want to go back to the era of George Best for inspiration on a kit. That's absolutely fine. A couple of other moves I want to ask you about before we get you out of here. We're already in extra time today. Dortmund did sign a player, Milos Jojic from Partizan Belgrade. How much of an upgrade or how much of a help will he be as they play out the rest of this season?
Big. I'd like to think he's pretty. From what I heard, talking to a couple of guys from there, they said he's probably he's probably the most promising talent in the country. From the videos I saw, he seems like a very quick technical player, and that's exactly the kind of guys Dortmund want. And especially with Błaszczykowski being injured, it's a perfect fit. But I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, the last time a guy came over from Eastern Europe, it worked out pretty well, but he left on a free to Bayern, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, 21-year-old attacking midfielder Milos Jojic. How often are German clubs? You mentioned the last time Dortmund did that. How often and how rich a vein is Eastern Europe for German clubs? I apologize if I'm just not aware of this.
It's huge, and that's because they can usually afford the kind of the tier one talent or prospects. So yeah, I mean, I think the largest this was, I'm not sure if it was a year or two ago, but I read it was just kind of a profile of where the majority of foreign players in the Bundesliga have come from in like the last decade, and all of them were from Poland, the Czech Republic, the Balkan countries. Croatia is another big one. So it's huge. I would say the majority of the scouting from Bundesliga clubs is done in Eastern Europe.
All right, last thing before I get you, we could do this all day. We really could. Every time Cristian's on, it feels like we should just keep going. But I have to get out of here. So Lewis Holtby moving from Spurs to Fulham, it's a step down in the standings. Is this a better move for him?
If it means consistent playing time, yeah, why not? I think. I mean, I don't know enough about the situation at Spurs, but it seems pretty
unsettled, pretty
unstable,
sure,
poisonous. I don't know.
Well,
right. I mean, the coaching switch. I mean, Holtby was always Andre Villas-Boas guy, from what I understood. He's the one who personally wanted Holtby at Spurs. So him leaving, I imagine, must have ruffled his feathers a little bit, or meant he wasn't really going to get the kind of playing time. So if it's a club like Fulham, which I think has a squad to do much better than they're doing now, then why not? I think he could be maybe one of the catalysts to kind of turn their season around.
It absolutely could. They're bringing in a couple. They got Mitroglou as well, which will help them. They're stocking up to try to get themselves out of that relegation zone. I don't think Shah Khan can handle a relegation after just buying that club. Cristian Nyari from Bundesliga Fanatic. Thank you very much for your time, as always, Cristian. Excellent discussion. I'm always happy to go over our normal time slot when we've got Cristian on the air. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, let's do it again soon, man.
Absolutely, we will. All right, that's going to do it for Soccer Morning on a Friday. It's going to do it for this week's shows. It's transfer deadline day. I don't have any new transfer news for you. I feel like I want to play the music again, but I'm not going to do it. Go have fun with your deadline day rumors and nonsense. Make sure you go to iTunes and give us ratings and reviews. Those help us out a lot as we try to get our name out there a little bit better. Yeah, we've got a Harry Redknapp car window interview. It's already happening, people. It's here. It's here. All right, you can get us on Stitcher. You can get us on TuneIn. You can get us at nasn.tv. Help me out. Anything else? Send me email, jason@nasn.tv. I'll take your email. And follow me on Twitter, DavisJSN. Follow the show, Soccer Morning. Follow all of the people we had as guests today. Christian Heneage, Curt Onalfo. He's not on Twitter, but pay attention to him. Brian McBride and Cristian Nyari. All right, that's it. That's real. I'm really done now. Really, really done. Feel good about that one. And I'm not... Yeah, I feel good about that one. All right, thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you on Monday. Bye.
Back in the days on the boulevard, I landed. We used to kick routines and the presence was fitting. It was I, the